Yo tengo un amigo que me ama, me ama, me ama. Yo tengo un amigo que me ama, su nombre es
The day was September 19th, 1985. The time was 7:18 in the morning. The delicate needle of a seismograph at a laboratory in Palisades, New York, told a silent but terrifying story. It took just 23 seconds, yet 10,000 lives were snuffed out. 60,000 people were injured. An earthquake had struck Mexico City. Never before had an earthquake of this magnitude, 8.1 on the Richter scale, struck such a large city. It was a disaster of an unprecedented kind. But there is an organization to which disaster relief is second nature. And within 1 hour, the Salvation Army in Mexico City had set up its emergency headquarters.
As soon as the house quit shaking, we realized that there was a more serious circumstance than we had originally thought. We could hear sirens. We turned on the radio and realized from the reports on the radio that there was serious damage in the city. We realized, too, that we'd have to have some kind of a headquarters for the operation, and the most logical place for this was the Core Number 1 building in Colonia Morelos. This building actually is an old warehouse that was secured a number of years ago and has been converted into a core building. But this was right in the middle of the Colonia Morelos area, which was one of the most severely hit areas in the city. People with so little lost so much in that area. And of course, with the earthquake happening right almost at breakfast time for many people, it became apparent that there was going to be a need for food service immediately.
First on the scene were the cadet officers from the Salvation Army Training College, located in the city.
I went to the bank and took out 200,000 pesos and went to the store, grabbed 2 carts and filled the carts up and got back to the school where they were heating the water and filled up the containers that I'd been able to purchase, and as soon as possible downtown to serve the people who were doing the rescue work. I found the cadets were already serving with the divisional commander. Some of them were inside of the half-collapsed buildings, helping to remove rubble so that they could help get people out. The whole downtown area was just a pall of dust of the buildings that had collapsed and the wind blowing the dust around. There were areas cordoned off. There were buildings in the street. People were confused. It was a matter of going up one-way streets the wrong way, going on the sidewalk where necessary. I'll never forget my first reaction to the first building that I saw that had fallen. Buildings that I had really expected would be able to hold up. Our building hadn't shown a crack, and yet these beautiful modern buildings were completely on the ground. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Apart from the dead and the injured, some 200,000 people were now homeless. In addition to losing their homes, many had lost loved ones, all their possessions, and their jobs as well, when the factories where they worked were destroyed. They were called Los Damnificados. That chilling word, with its resonance of lost souls back through the centuries, captured the drastic nature of their plight. It was clear that a major effort would be needed to come to their aid, and the Salvation Army went right into action. The story of that effort, what it was able to accomplish, and how it was put together is a fascinating one. It involved a partnership between the Salvation Army and literally thousands of civilian volunteers of all kinds from across the United States and Canada. The first requirement, as it is with all relief efforts, was for accurate information. When any major disaster strikes, there's always an initial period of confusion. To make matters worse, in this case, Mexico City was virtually cut off from the outside world by the disruption of the overseas telephone exchange. Radio was the only answer. Direct radio contact had to be established between this country and Mexico City. That leads us to a dramatically different setting, a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, and the home of Quint Nelson, a ham radio operator who had helped the Salvation Army several times in the past. Quint immediately set up a three-way radio link between his station in Covington, Georgia, the Salvation Army operator in Mexico City, and the nearest U.S. territorial headquarters, which are also in Atlanta.
We handled that by setting up a Bell telephone line, putting a headphone set on, so when the phone rang, I could have a hands-free operation to work with the computer. A Salvation Army officer was on hand in Mexico City at the other station. The answer would come back immediately. As the answer was coming across the screen, I could relay it right through the headset to Major Michaels anywhere that he might be in the United States. And we handled a lot of that, many hours of that type of communication.
On Friday, September 20th, the day after the earthquake, Mexico City was shaken by a second severe earthquake, measuring 7.5 on the Richter scale.